Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Africans and dreamers. Welcome back to Ubuntu Dreams Podcast, where we bring you change makers, innovators, business people, and activists driving the change that we want to see on the continent to the future of this continent that we call the 21st century society. Today, I'd like to welcome you, our guest. But before I do want to remind you guys to please subscribe on the channel, link us up on our social media, and let's have a conversation. Every single time we're here, we're actually here to spark discussion. We're here to get some of your feedback. We're here to pose questions. And if you have questions as well, please drop it in the comments below and reach us out on social media. And without further ado, please allow me to welcome our honored guest, a man of true transformation of the future of the continent. I'm very excited to hear some of his deep perspectives, and I hope that you guys will also enjoy. Mr. Sibusiso Nkosi. Sir, welcome so much to the show. Thank you for making your time, and it's truly an honor.
No, thank you.
Truly an honor.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Just from a brief perspective, you're being a thought leader, being out in the industry makes it easy to share with people who you are as a BBBEE specialist. We'll get into that for those who aren't aware, and a manager with, or at least used to be a manager within investor relations of SAICA, now going to be executive director at Siaka Enterprise Development. You've been in the industry for more than 10 years. You have been a thought leader, working with hundreds of SMEs, impacting on various platforms, talking about and workshopping, doing master classes, working with organizations such as Coca-Cola Supply Development Conference. You had a chat there at the 7th Annual Organizational Design Forum. That's very interesting.
That was my first one.
That was your first one, where you where you shook the industry, but you also shook the industry when you wrote the book Forgotten Fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that is why BBBEE does not work.
Yeah.
And I mean, today, a well-renowned thought leader and activist in transformation for Black-owned SMEs. Sir, it is nothing but an honor, knowing that growing up, Kopitoli, moms, just here in the depths of Gauteng, and taking yourself and your background and your identity into the future of South Africa. I want to just get a glimpse of how it was for you growing up, and sort of how that shaped you to be someone who's now fighting for transformation, fighting for entrepreneurship, and fighting for the inclusive growth of the economy.
Yeah. I've never been introduced like that, so that's amazing. Yeah, that's very amazing. But I think just getting back to the question that you're asking, growing up in Mamelodi, okay, when you're in the township, you don't understand how underprivileged you are until you get out of the township. So we It's like a bubble. We spend most of our time in the township. We were happy to use bricks as toys. We were happy, to play hide and seek. We used to call it Black Mampatile, at night. We were always happy. We were always smiling. We were not contaminated by politics.
Sure.
And then you grow up. Then as you grow up, you get into corporate. And that's when you start understanding all these different dynamics. I mean, when I got my first job, I was very naive. I went in there and I said, you know what, I think I'm one of the best people. I'm going to get promoted. And then you start seeing that discrimination. Then you start hearing the language as well. Black people are lazy. Black people are entitled and etc. I started getting offended, like a lot, because I know my people. I know where we come from. I know how my father used to go to school and never had shoes, and then he changed his generation, and actually educated us. So I never understood why people would say stuff like that. Now, interesting enough, my first job was with Empowerdex. So I was a BE verification analyst.
Okay.
So at the point
and
where...
this was in the beginning of,
beginning of BE.
Coming into play.
Beginning of BE.
And at that point, just as a quick tangent, was it also focusing... It was mostly focusing on entrepreneurship, right? It was about empowering black entrepreneurs at that time.
So, brief history. 2003 BE was about ownership and management control, right? Before it became BBBEE. Okay. Came in 2003, 2004.
Okay.
And this was basically government saying, you can't have 100% white-owned companies.
Yeah.
That's when the whole 25% stake, given to black people started. And then in 2005, that's when it became broad-based black economic empowerment. Then it added more elements. On top of ownership and management, there was also employment equity, skills development, ESD. That's where it came in, and procurement.
Okay, so this is BBBE, broad-based black empowerment.
Yes. So it used to be black economic empowerment only. Then it became broad-based. In order for companies to start empowering black people, you have to look at more than just ownership. You have to look at enterprise development. You have to look at skills development.
It's a chain. It's an ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem.
It's broad. So Empowerdex at that time was one of the verifiers, right?
It was one of the verifiers.
If a company says, I am BE this level, you would then come in and confirm that.
We would confirm, challenge, interrogate. It was a much bigger. We would audit.
Okay.
So if a company is claiming that we have 25 black managers, my job is to go in there, is to look at the employment contracts, is to look at the pay slips, is to interview the manager to see what their responsibilities are. And at the end of the day, I have to make a call whether I believe you or not, whether you are complying with the codes or not. If you're saying you've trained this number of black people or you've given them bursaries, I have to go in there and check the paperwork. Was the money paid to that institution? Is this person really studying? I would interview them, look at the paperwork. Is this contribution you're talking about, is it in your financial statement? So it's a very intense process. You spend your entire day at the premises of a different company, interrogating everything. When you're looking at ESD, does the beneficiary know that they received 50,000? On the financial statements, I have to check on the bank statement. I have to follow the money to see. It's a very, 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 very intense. And that's when I was shocked at the amount of fronting.
Because it was
shocking. It was you saw black managers that are not being paid the same as white managers. When we check the pay slip, people would resist giving you information. I'd ask for financial statements, and if I see a figure on the financial statements and I'm not satisfied about it, I need additional invoices and the general ledger, and they would resist.
This is so exciting, man, because on the show, we like to talk about where Africa's going, how to empower the continent, what the African child should be thinking in order to be productive and creative and play a role in the future of the world economy. And what I've seen and very fascinated about your perspective on it as well is that across the globe, every time we have this conversation about African innovation, and then we look across the globe, is that there is limited formal information of African. But there is such a strong proliferation of Africans innovating informally. And when that happens, and you look at those various societies, Africans are usually the most, say, disadvantaged, in the lower part of society, say in the inequality areas, and even in South Africa, that is the case, and also even on the continent. And you say, when we think of why you started on this journey, because it was your first job. You went and looked for it. I'm trying to think from a historical global view, even from a personal view. Why did you go into this line of work?
So I love black people. I always tell people I love black people more than anything. I think black people have been through the most. And I'm talking black people everywhere. All across the world. They've been through a lot. They're still going through a lot. But black people keep fighting, And I think my love for black people is what made me really focus on these inequalities and actually be offended by them and say strategically, you know, I need to start influencing whatever policy is there that would assist.
So you fell in love with Africans.
I fell in love with Africans. I'm in love with Africans globally. I'm in love with Africans. That's why, you know, there's certain things that would come through, like your xenophobia and etc. And you know, I don't understand it. I really do not understand it. It makes it difficult. I just don't get it. You know, I spend a lot of time in the township, and this is where it's rife, you know. But then you must remember, that's how the system set us up. The system set us up to actually fight amongst each other. You know, if you look at white people in South Africa, you know, you get your white people that speak English and white people that speak Afrikaans. With us, you get the Tsonga, and it makes it easy to cause a conflict. You know, so exactly. So that's how exactly. You know, so that's how the system was put together. You know, to make it easy for us to conflict. And that's what we need to start thinking about.
And when we talk about the future of Africa, it always seems to come back to this liberation. There's an element of liberation when we talk about African entrepreneurs, African innovation, and African business economy thriving in the future. And that's about transformation. Why do you think there's such a strong connection between the future of the continent and this aspect of liberation? Or do you think that it's just a conversation that we're having here in South Africa? Or do you think in Zambia, in Nigeria, that there's resonance? And I'm hoping the guys in Zambia, DRC as well, if you're English speaking in the DRC and you happen to speak both languages, but if you also have a perspective, please drop in the comments how it's like for you. But from your perspective, why do you think this future is so connected to the liberation of black people?
So here's the thing, right? The only people that can solve the problems of black people is black people. And if you look at broader African countries, they actually celebrate the problem solvers. And that's the part that we're actually missing in South Africa. You know, we put undue pressure on people to become entrepreneurs. I don't think we should do that.
Not everyone should be an entrepreneur.
I think, you know, I think let's say to people, find a way to solve African problems. Entrepreneurship will kick in automatically, or the field of study is going to be influenced, you know. But, you know, if you say that to somebody, they will sit and say, you know what, now I understand why I'm going for this course. Now I understand why I'm applying for this specific position. This is how I've been moving around in terms of the positions that I apply for, you know, when I'm taking on jobs.
This is why I'm trying to sell what I'm selling. This is why I'm registering this business.
That's the thing. Then, you know what, it would actually be aligned. And that's, you speak about innovation, okay? African innovation is different because Africa, I won't say because Africa is poor, because Africa is very rich, you know, but we...
In many ways, just the way we describe richness.
That's it, you know. So let's just use this term, you know, just for the sake of throwing up this scenario. Innovation in Africa, because Africa is so poor, is not an app necessarily. It's somebody figuring out how to move water from one place to another
without electricity,
without
infrastructure.
That's it.
Without the right skills.
That's it. By taking two pieces of wood and placing them a specific way so that something can move. So it's not machines. You know, we're not celebrating that, and that's the big problem. We're still chasing the same innovation, or the definition of innovation that's in, you know, first world countries.
Hence the talking of trying to spark entrepreneurship. That's something that came from after hundreds of years of problem solving in Europe. Then they realized, oh, some of the guys that solve problems are entrepreneurs. Some of the guys are scientists. Some of the guys are in corporate. And now we're saying we need entrepreneurs. But actually what you're saying is no. Not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. What we need for the future of African innovation is to liberate ourselves from importing ideas that don't belong here, and just think about what can we apply in our circumstances and solve problems.
We need problem solvers. Problem solvers are the ones that are going to take Africa forward. Now, whether we do it through technology, whether we do it through sharing information, those are the little things that we need to start discussing how we're going to do it. But jumping into buzzwords is also not helping us. Right now, we're like fourth industrial revolution, 4IR. You know, there's people that are calling themselves 4IR specialists. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if there are children that are still using pit toilets, and some of them are actually falling in those pit toilets, they are dying, and then we're talking about bringing them tablets in schools.
What problem?
Exactly.
Which problems are you solving?
Is that moving Africa forward? If a black child's dignity of a young girl having to use a toilet that doesn't flush and has a high risk of contracting
all
the
sorts
germs
of infections.
Exactly.
All sorts of infections.
You want to solve her problem by bringing in tablets that can, with apps that can connect her with other teachers in the private school.
But we haven't solved some of these
We haven't solved the African problem.
things.
Exactly. So whoever would come up with a solution around that,
Sure.
those are the people who should be celebrating.
Sure.
Not the guy who managed to create the app that now connects the rural schools and the private schools.
Sure.
Let's say to somebody, here's a general African problem. How can we solve this?
Powerful view of problem solving, because it's so core to what you later came to doing, right? Is that this sparked the realization of the fronting of BE, and that it's not solving the real problem. And then from there you went on to your next steps, which is when you started to think of how can I really solve the problem. So where did you go after EmpowerDex?
So after EmpowerDex, I wanted to be one of the best verification analysts in South Africa.
Sure.
I wanted to have a lot of integrity, and because of that, I was very
shunned upon.
Exactly, because I wasn't the easiest verification analyst to deal with. I interrogated information, and then so from there on, then I think because of my integrity, I started getting poached. Then I went to NERA, which was another verification agency. Then I tried the consulting side of BE as well, because you must remember, verification is basically saying you comply or you don't comply.
Sure.
Consulting is let's prepare you
to comply.
Yeah, how to comply. So I've been on both sides. And then up to the point where I started getting into enterprise and supply development, which is a specific element out of the 5 element within BE,
And that's where we talk about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Okay.
In the aspect of transformation, So I eventually moved on to that, but I'm going back now to addressing all of the elements. I've spent a lot of time with the SMMEs, but you know what? There's issues with employment equity.
Yes.
There's issues within skills development.
It's broad. It's broad. The inequality
it's now broad. Community
broad.
Trusts. There's a lot of stuff that's happening.
Interesting.
There's a lot of fronting that's going on. So we now need to go back and fix the rest of the elements. The employment equity report, tells you that over 60% of jobs, senior management jobs in South Africa still belong to white people.
Which is...
does not represent the statistics of the country.
And white males,
white males specifically. So there's a certain level of gatekeeping as well, that we need to talk about. Senior manager will employ a white senior manager. Chances are will employ a white middle manager. White middle manager chances are will employ a white junior manager. So that gatekeeping actually has a long effect.
And that's why transformation in general is so core to you. I wanna circle back to two things. On entrepreneurship, because a lot of the time people that are problem solving and the people that are watching are likely to be entrepreneurs, think about entrepreneurship, or at least within their area trying to be entrepreneurial, whether that's in the company, in an NGO, but trying to truly create value and solve problems, and still connecting with this thing of the future of Africa as an opportunity for Africans and even the whole world, being connected to this element of being liberated out of this unequal spiral. In the SME space, you spent a lot of time there. What are some of the things that you would say SMEs, entrepreneurs should be looking out for,
Yeah.
or some of the things that you saw that you think are really need to be addressed in the
Yeah.
context of South Africa
Yeah.
in order for entrepreneurs to thrive,
Yeah.
particularly black-owned entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
or
So
SMEs.
I think one of the biggest issues, we have a lot of, it sounds bad, but we have a lot of unnecessary SMMEs. And that's because we never taught people how to become problem solvers. So they don't know how to spot opportunities. I like what you said when you're saying entrepreneurial. Being entrepreneurial for me is being able to identify those problems. But another issue is that maybe we don't talk a lot about our problems as Africans. And because we don't get into those conversations, people don't get an opportunity to actually spot. We are full of issues, which means we are full of opportunities in Africa.
Problems are opportunities.
Problems are opportunities, and we've got
lots of problems.
We've got lots of them. I mean, let's take it down to township economy revitalization and say, how do we solve...
Topic that's very important.
Very important.
Very core in South Africa as well.
That's it. Rural development, township economy revitalization. Because those are the two economies that represent major, the biggest number of economies in Africa. Most of the economies in Africa
are based
rural
in
and township.
Rural and township, which are largely informal. Could describe us a little bit. If someone has certain things that they see, how will they know if they're in a rural or township economy?
Yeah. So this is my definition. My definition is that rural is where there's the lack of infrastructure is major.
Sure.
Is major.
Sure.
So it's difficult to move one thing from one point to the next.
Got it.
Okay. Townships, it's easier, but they've been separated from the urban areas. You see now. So those are the two. The two economies, they look similar. They look very similar, but the township economy is like it's almost there, in terms of moving things around. Whereas the rural one, in terms of infrastructure, it's terrible. It's even difficult to think entrepreneurship when you're in the rural economy. Whereas with the township one, at least you start seeing
thinking, but you don't have access to the larger the urban city center economy.
Far away from it. You are completely disconnected. Now, here's a funny thing: a lot of innovative solutions come from rural areas, but they've never been patented. They are not commercialized because it's desperate people trying to find ways. Real solutions. So if you can look at what has been created in the township economy, in the rural economy, if you can look at what these elder women have created.
And they're using it and they're not even thinking that they're just solving a problem.
They're just solving a problem they don't know. So there's a lot of products that are actually sitting there.
I remember my grandma used to make soap. She used to make, all sorts of foods by mixing different herbs, and when you are sick, should give you certain roots and all these things, and
that's it. I mean, they find solutions to actually transport water easily, from a far distance. They come up with that kind of stuff.
Or they'll dig a hole in such a way that it captures
there's
the water.
So much. So it's not that there's no innovation.
Yeah.
There's so much innovation. It's just that it hasn't been commercialized. There's a lot of stuff, Buntu, that we don't know. That's actually happening there. I mean, you read about stories about how some young girls actually managed to create energy out of cow dung, and
you know what I'm saying. No bachelor's degrees, no PhD,
nothing.
No masters.
16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
An inherent knowledge. What you're saying reminds me of, I'd like to get your perspective on this. I was having a conversation today about First Nations or ancient knowledge, particularly in Africa.
Yeah.
And this was a white lady who was saying this. She was born here, her parents were born here, but her grandparents immigrated to South Africa. And she identifies as an African full out and full on. And she's studying African anthropology and African history and some of the First Nations per se. There's knowledge. She says there's knowledge that anthropologists and archaeologists have done a disservice of sharing with the world about the initial nations and societies of Africa, but also other areas in Asia and the Aborigines in Australia as well, and being such a strong believer of African, inherent knowledge, Black people and Africa as well. Do you think that in the future of the continent that there's a value in connecting to who we are, or that type of knowledge? I mean, you also spoke about, when we're chatting a little bit before, is that your own identity and even the South African middle class, most of it comes from rural and township economies.
Yes.
But the Black middle class often is running away from that. And sometimes it's difficult to we don't always identify. Even myself, sometimes guilty as charged. I don't always identify with that part of me. I'll pay for my cousins to come to school here in Johannesburg or in Cape Town because I want to get them out of there. But actually, that part is so much a part of me that if I don't sometimes go back there, or at least realize that the issues and inequality are and the knowledge that's sitting in the back of the class can help that part, the rural and the township, that connecting with our history. Please reflect for me.
We struggle on how to connect, Buntu. It's not that we don't understand we need to connect. We struggle on how to connect. How do I connect with my roots? And which aspects do I connect with first? And how far back do I go if I'm going to connect? You get what I'm saying? And that's why we always battle with this thing of saying, no, but then we can't go back to wearing ibeshu and stuff like that and whatnot. I mean, like, the world has changed, now we have to...
Why should I go to my wedding still with Mkonto and do those things?
And then, sometimes I say to people, okay, then that's the aspect you're not comfortable with connecting with. Okay? But there's more aspects to that. Then a person would be like, okay, now I'm getting confused. So it's how do we connect and how far back do we go to actually connect with it? So fortunately, we've brought in subcultures.
Okay.
I really love subcultures. Okay. I think subcultures is the easiest way to take a millennial and connect them with the township sort of like background, because they can only go back when it comes to roots. They can only go back to the township is where they can. You can't now. I can't take them. For example, my father is from Swaziland. He can't connect me far back to his roots in Swaziland. He's finding it difficult. I'm finding it difficult. I'm speaking to him. I don't get it. But he said to me, "Your subculture is you are a Mamelodian. You're a township boy. Township boy." That's how I connect with it. It's sporty, all-star. So now I can see at which level I can connect with my identity. That's part of my identity now. And we keep bringing in new subcultures, for the millennials as well. You look at the kind of music that they listen to, and that's what you need to do. Then you have to calculate how far back can you take them. My niece is 21. I can't take her far back in terms of township history as I would go. But there's a certain level of it that started their own subculture that I can use to actually connect with her identity. So that's what we need to play on. I come from the background of poetry sessions. We used to have, ciphers. We are there. You get what I'm saying? That's what, So I mean, that kind of hip hop and that influence. I can't. That's a subculture I connect with. If I'm saying I'm Black, I'm talking about those times. So now we need to look at the current subcultures and connect people with that, because they're not too different from African ideologies, if I can put it like that. They're not too far off. It's just that they're more advanced in terms of how they are being expressed. So connect people the correct way. It's the only way we're going to be connecting with this whole thing. So you spoke about the Black middle class as well. The Black middle class also has become so disconnected to the whole, to their background and their identity.
Sure.
And then I'm putting it in a form of township. Because
Sure.
I mean, like, if they can't connect with the township, I won't even speak to them about connecting with their culture. That's not gonna that's not gonna happen. Let's just forget it. Let's talk about what they're
Just
closest
a
one.
generation ago,
Just a generation ago. So they struggle to connect with that because they've been told that everything about township is not okay.
Corrupt.
It's corrupt, it's broken, it's crime, it's not okay. And also they've been told, work hard so that you can leave the township.
Leave the hood.
Leave the hood. That's what we work towards.
We're escaping to escape
we are
the hood.
escaping to the hood. But we need to understand something. When it comes to connection, you don't necessarily have to stay in the hood to connect with the hood. You got what I'm saying? I don't stay in the township, but I'm in the township almost every weekend. I'm still connected. I've got initiatives that I'm doing in the township. You can still connect with it. You can still make your contribution towards it. You can fix it. I mean, I understand the urgency of having to get out of the hood now.
Sure.
Because the environment is not conducive, for growth.
Sure.
Currently as it is. So I understand the urgency you have to get out. And also you don't have access to a lot of immediate facilities that you would need. Convenience, I get it. But I'm saying, now that you're in the burbs, then you understand what access to facilities and access to information is.
And the power.
And the power of it. Take that model of whatever suburbs you stay and go replicate it then in the township. And then start growing it.
Go and empower.
Exactly, Because at the same time, it's also unfair to say people must not get out of the hood.
Yeah, okay.
We're still trying to fix it.
But the issue is, how do we connect with it in a productive way?
Connection and residing are two different things. You need to stay connected, even though you don't reside there.
I suppose that's a transformational approach.
It's a transformational approach. It's a transformational approach.
And knowing you as well, you're very passionate in the ESD space. I mean, working with the SMEs.
Yeah.
And trying to get the fronting out of ESD. Even when we talk about transformational managers, these are the guys that are employed by large corporates in order to transform their supply chains. I know that transformation in its true form doesn't always have the same definition to everybody.
Yes. So everybody has their own, you see, the reason why we have BE codes per sector as well, because we have what we have called sector charter codes. So it just shows you that transformation has different languages as well. You have the generic BE codes, which cover any other business. But if you're in the ICT sector, you've got your own BE codes. If you're in the construction sector, you've got your own BE codes. We've got tourism, we've got transport, we've got maritime, we've got a couple of...
So depending on those, your metrics, your definition of transformation
should fit
based
within
that
exactly
sector.
But also it gets broken down to the individual as well. So this is where the transformation manager come in. The codes in their form are open to interpretation. And I will tell you why. I think government was scared to be specific in terms of what white-owned companies must do to address transformation. So they are vague.
It's vague policy, vague statements, vague requirements.
That's it. So you and me are not going to interpret it the same. So now it's up to the transformation manager to come up with an interpretation that's progressive. Because they need to define for the company what transformation is for that company, what ESD is for that company.
What is employment equity for that
What is employment equity? And the thing for me is that if you are a transformation manager and then you are failing to come up with a definition that's progressive and you stick to your tick box exercise,
which we've seen a lot
which we've seen a lot.
Not only from, to quickly add, not only from transformation and ESD and BE, but even from foreign aid into Africa, often also has its tick box exercises without real impact outcomes.
We know the funds.
Which from your experience you've seen firsthand.
We know those funds. We know those funds. We know the aid that's coming in, and then we know a couple of NGOs would actually apply, for that funding, and then they'll just say, all we need from you is this report in this format, and then send it every month. And then that's what people would do. So that they don't evaluate how deep the impact go and how relevant.
Yeah.
Impact has to be relevant. That's another thing you need to remember.
That's the interpretation part, right?
That's it. It has to be relevant. So now, if you are a transformation manager, going back to your ESD, and you're saying, my impact is to get 10 companies to get into my program and graduate from my ESD program.
Okay.
And
So
that's
you
my
design the
impact,
program. Sure.
So when we speak about programs, so we speak about, your mentorship. So let's say maybe a transformation manager says, for the next 10 months, I want 10 small businesses to come here, and then I want our CEO to sort of like mentor them and
Spend
give them
2
business
hours a
skills.
month.
Yeah, 2 hours a month. And then
Give
after 12
workshops
months,
about this.
we give them certificates. Okay,
Sure.
so your interpretation basically says that's impact as soon as they graduate.
Okay.
But is your impact relevant to what's happening in the country? Is it relevant to the
business.
NDP? Is it relevant to the United Nations SDGs? Or is it only relevant
To your company and
to your company and your stats? So your interpretation is not progressive, Mr. Transformation Manager.
It's title transformation.
Yeah, then you know what? It's not. It's not. You need to. Your job is bigger than the company that you work for. It is not. Your impact is not relevant. You've basically created your own scorecard that you're going to be scored on.
And this is what inspires me about particularly your perspective for African transformation.
Yeah.
Is that you do a lot of work challenging what transformation managers are not being relevant about.
Yeah.
And you often say, what should they be doing? Like, what's the approach then they should be applying to be truly transformation, not just transformation by title?
Yeah. So for me I think transformation managers, if you are a transformation manager and you don't have an opinion about the development of Africa, I'm not talking about South Africa, the development of Africa, you will never understand the position you're in. You'll never be able to solve the African transformation issues. That means you're going to start losing it at the South African level. And you will never be able to connect it to the entire Africa. And that's the big problem for me. People think I don't like transformation managers. I love transformation managers.
The ones who are doing the job that you want to do.
You get what I'm saying? I just want them to understand that they're part of a bigger agenda. Remember, we spoke about the black middle class being the drivers of transformation. Most of these transformation managers are black middle class. You see now, so the black middle class that's sitting with that information. All I'm saying is that make your strategies more progressive. I understand that, and I'll tell you what they need to do. I understand that sometimes they have limited resources, and I will tell you why. Companies don't have, BE is not a core operation of a company. If you're a bank,
B is not how you make money.
No, B is not how you make money. So if you're a transformation manager and you're sitting at a meeting and everybody's talking about how to make and save money, you are coming here and you say, give me money.
To do what? Or you want to spend on the ESDs to you want to transform the country?
Yeah.
Okay, we're losing shares.
Go work for an NGO. So
that's what they hear.
Yeah. So I understand. Listen, they do face that challenge. I understand that, Buntu. I understand that it's difficult, but I'm saying they need to get in and they need to start challenging the status quo as well. They're dealing with a whole lot of resistance. Now, this is what they need to do. Transformation managers don't have their own association or their own platform where they get together and then they talk. And that's why they are leading transformation differently. And it's loose and it's silos and it's disconnected. I think they need to come together and sit down. And talk. I think once they do that, we're going to start seeing a big change. They must not compete. This is not competition. The problem is that, I'm good at getting my company to a level 1. This one is like, okay, game on. Let's see what can happen. It's not a competition.
The question is, how do we collaborate? How do we
collaborate? How do we come up? How do we become part of the same system?
And this is a big issue within, I would say, black societies. is, maybe it touches on connecting.
Yes.
Maybe it touches on the history of divide and conquer.
Yes.
But this element of organizing each other and supporting, even as entrepreneurs, black brands, black-owned startups that are bringing in something new into the market. Some entrepreneurs say they find it more difficult because of to get support from their own communities. Because of that element. I suppose what's your view? What's your experience in terms of how SMEs do that? And
okay, so here's another thing, right? I have a problem with buy black, buy township initiatives, and I'll tell you why. Townships are burning every weekend. Okay. Mamelodi was burning 3 weeks ago. People were protesting. Now, if you have people that are so distressed about bigger issues of service delivery, what is a buy black campaign to them?
Why should they be solving a problem that's not a problem?
It's not a problem for them. It's not a problem. It's a problem for the SMMEs. So whenever we look at township economy revitalization at this current state speaks about the development of SMMEs. No, the township economy is not just SMMEs. It's the people as well. Where are the initiatives to solve the people's problems? If you have a company that does construction, and you keep telling everybody in the township, please use that construction company when you want to build your wall and stuff like that and whatnot. Listen, at this moment in time, that's not what they're thinking about.
We didn't get electricity for the last
We didn't get electricity, So if you build a culture of problem solvers, somebody comes in and can actually solve this problem of load shedding. I'm just giving an example. And then you say to the community, please buy local and support these guys. You've just connected them to the solution that they need. They will buy local.
Problem.
They will buy local.
I totally hear that, because sometimes we, like you said, we have unnecessary SMEs.
We have a lot of them.
It's cool you want to start a shoe brand, but there's so many shoes. And so what is the issue that Ugogo is having in order to actually have a business, a real business?
That's the thing.
And that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
and we will get there, Buntu. We will get there to the point where you can be in the township and sell luxury items and people will buy it. But empower the consumer first. The consumer is not empowered. The consumer is in stress. You focusing on supply.
Yeah. But how are you going to get the demand?
How is that going to help?
Those economics are not going to work.
They're not going to work. It's like you missed the basic fundamentals of economics. You missed it from there, So let's focus on, even with ESD programs, I think that's why I'm saying look at a broader scope. How you ask the question, how do we take Africa forward?
Sure.
If you're going to start an ESD program, from the moment you select your beneficiaries to what you want to coach them on, has to speak to the agenda of getting Africa to the next level.
Forward.
Don't build a program that is about taking people in and getting them to graduate. And when you say to them, okay, guys, please contribute to the future of Africa, they can't. They can only contribute to moving products. You've taught them sales.
You've taught them sales.
Have you told them what Africa looks like in the next 5 years? And what role they can play?
Why they're in their situation that they're in right now? That's so amazing, because I'm imagining now an ESD program that would talk about the African philosophy.
Yes.
Talks about African history.
Yes.
It talks about other world history and how they developed.
Yeah.
And then we start talking about, okay, now your community, what are the problems? And then we go into mentorship. What's your business about?
That's it. Work it backwards. Work it backwards.
I think that would be revolutionary.
That would be revolutionary. The biggest opportunities lie in, there's a new sector that's booming now, which is the renewable energy sector.
Renewable energies.
People are building wind farms. People are building all of that.
Lots of money going into that.
Now, what's going to be interesting for me, I want to see what they are going to be doing under their ESD. right? Because they've created a charter for them, which is a transformation charter for these renewable energy companies. And ESD is part of it. I'm interested to see, because they're sitting directly at moving Africa forward. Electricity is one of the biggest issues. So I would like to see what they're going to do with SMMEs, how they're going to select their beneficiaries, how they're going to plug them into the future of electricity. Because if we lose it there, and they do support for catering companies, and they
and another media agency.
There's nothing wrong with those businesses, so people must not hate me. But I'm just saying, you know what, if they fail at creating the next generation of people that can, you know, produce energy in Ghana, in the rural areas of Kenya, if the ESD programs fail to look at that,
that's so powerful, because
we have a big
ESD programs, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at a 32 billion rand spend in South Africa.
And so estimated at 50 for 2020, 50 billion for 2020.
50 billion rands to be spent. And I can just imagine, I mean, if we that's about $5 billion, let's say $3 billion, that's almost 1% of the economy of South Africa. And just putting even 10% of that behind an industry that can create so many new jobs, that's new all over the world. It's such a young industry, can be very, very transformational. It sounds like a dream.
Hugely. And that's why I'm saying, you know what, if you got your interpretation right, imagine if you're a transformation manager and you're sitting in those companies that have an ESD budget of, and I'll get to the other elements as well, the ESD budget of 150 million. Buntu, you're sitting with 150 million
rand. Jeez.
And you're looking at the African dream. And you are studying, you are sitting here and then you're studying the issues in Kenya, you're studying the issues in Ghana, you're studying the issues in Congo.
And you are connected to the African dream.
Connected to the African dream. And you run it back and you say, you know what, it starts by either, okay guys, let's think. It's either we start new entities or we take existing ones and then maybe diversify them this way.
Sure.
You know, let's bring in, and that's another thing, the issue of collaboration is a problem. Let's bring in a university.
Let's just not work alone.
No, let's bring in a university. Let's bring in a PhD. You know, let's bring in.
And even if I'm a Tiger Brands, let me speak to the guys at Unilever.
Yes,
because we're gonna bring this element. You guys bring this element.
Imagine a world where ESD is actually treated like that. You even fly in people from those countries. You know, you're like, okay, get a guy from DRC to come this side, a consultant or whatever. You know, let's sit down and let's talk to them. And he must fly here. We will fly with this 150 million. We will fly him here with 3 of the SMMEs from the DRC. So that they can
collaborate, connect.
Let's talk. Let's understand your cause even much more better. You must remember, when SMMEs come together, they do stuff way better than government.
Real creative, real problem solvers.
Way better than government. Do you know?
That's out to you guys. Real problem solvers. Don't wait for the government to help you.
No.
Also a plug for Man Patriot, that one.
You know, so I think that's definitely what we need to do. I'm very excited with my new position. My new position is Africa. It's Transformation Africa. You know, I met with some of the directors that I'm going to be working with, and that's what we spoke about.
That's what you spoke about. What is
connecting with Africa? You know,
so powerful.
Youth unemployment, connecting it to Africa. You must remember, whatever South African problem we have, the other guys have it 5 times worse.
And I mean, now you are sitting at the head of the industry, influential, with oversight and information. And just as a note, I do want to get back to your book in terms of what's the outcome of that. But before we go there, where you're sitting now and just trying to connect on what was your dream, like when you were young, I don't know, 6, 10, what did you want to be? Do you ever remember like what you were thinking of?
I was raised by teachers.
Okay.
My father, teacher. My mother, teacher. My father obviously moved on to become a schools inspector, and then he worked for the Department of Education. Okay, so, you know, and then after he retired, he was assisting UNISA, but, you know, both of them are educators. So I wanted to be an educator as well. I wanted to educate people.
Wanted to teach.
I wanted to teach. You know, I think at that moment in time, I thought it was just teaching, but it was just
in a classroom.
Yes, you know, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I am a teacher. I'm an educator. I'm an educator. I write a lot of articles. I speak at a lot of events. I participate in a lot of podcasts, and you know, I do a whole lot of this. So I'm imparting knowledge onto people. I'm doing master classes. So I think my dream worked out.
You are living your dream.
I think it worked out. I think my 6-year-old dream.
Congratulations, sir.
I think it definitely worked out. You know, yeah. And I'm very passionate about thought leadership. Actually, next year I'm going to be rolling out a program where I teach students in TVET colleges how to become thought leaders. Yeah, I know how many opportunities it opened up for me. You know, the top jobs that I got was because people are saying, we've seen your leadership traits.
Sure.
You know, we don't even need to interview you at this moment in time.
Sure,
you know,
we just see.
You've shown it. So I'm thinking, if you have young people that are already active on, you know, social media and LinkedIn, and they're publishing their own opinions and everything like that, a potential employer is looking there and saying, this is the kind of talent we need in our organization.
This resonates with what we're trying to achieve.
That's it. You know, so I'm going to be rolling out next year. I'm going to be doing it, you know, as my way of giving back. And I'm targeting mostly TVET colleges.
Let's talk
That's
about
where our
that,
black people are sitting.
That's something that also very much resonates, and I believe in.
I think,
I think we can put some resources, some time behind it, and see what we can also contribute. But let's go to your book, bro.
So
the book is titled Forgotten Fundamentals.
Why BBBEE does not work?
Why broad-based black economic empowerment does not work.
Right.
Why doesn't it work?
Okay.
What are these forgotten fundamentals?
Okay. So it was an interesting time when I wrote the book. I wrote the book when I was super frustrated. I think at that time I had worked for about 4 verification agencies. I had done more than 500 BE verifications. I had bumped into a whole lot of fronting. I had bumped into a whole lot of resistance. I had bumped into a whole lot of dishonesty and lying, and because that's what you uncover when you actually doing your audits. And then that's when I actually started writing down the points, you know, in terms of this is where the problems are, you know. And then that's what the chapters of the book are about. You know, they speak to specific areas of BE where things are actually not working. You know, one of them obviously being point buying. Point buying, yes.
Let's hear that.
You can buy points on your BE scorecard, literally with money.
Points are, in simple terms.
So you're looking at your employment equity statistics.
Okay.
Will give you points. So you and I are points because we're black people.
Okay.
So by me changing your contract from artisan to senior artisan, and then paying you a little bit more, that's me buying the points. It will get me 1 more point on my BE scorecard.
And the scorecard is essentially this 1 to 7.
Yeah.
Where 1 is
level 1 to 8, yes.
1 to 8?
Yes.
1 is transformed, so you take a lot of points.
You are mixing your points.
Everything, but at 8 you're almost done nothing.
Yeah, it's like your points are terrible.
So when people are buying points, they're using money to just bump up here, but not really transforming. That's what you're saying.
That's it. That's exactly it. So point buying is a very big problem. You can buy your ESD points as well. This is where I take my 1% of net profit after tax as required by the BE codes and just throw it at an incubator and not even ask questions and not even ask for reports and not even care what they do with that money.
But I've reported
the fact that
1% spent.
It came out. You can see it in the financial statements. The money did come out. I bought myself an entire 15 points.
Wow.
Out of 100. That's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
What did you do?
Exactly. You did nothing. With training, you know, I can take you guys to some training that's Buntu is not even gonna advance you in your career. But the fact that, you know what, I can show
there's a training, there's a certificate.
Training, there's a certificate, I will get my points. But when you're looking at that certificate, it does not make a difference in your life. That's point buying. And you can buy them on your entire scorecard. You know, you can put in money to get a black trust created so that it holds 26% of your company. You get your full points for your ownership. But if you look at that trust, and in terms of whether they are really benefiting or not, but the trust deed is there.
Trust deed is there, the names are there.
The names are there. You paid for it. So you can buy points on your whole entire scorecard.
Okay, so there's an element I want to talk to about this liberating aspect, which I'm reminded of, but I want to cover a little bit more of these broken fundamentals or forgotten fundamentals. Yeah.
So most of them are actually, you know, they surround around the issue of impact, you know, as well. So I speak about different areas where you can do your point buying. Like I mentioned a couple of them with your skills development and etc. You know, also under the procurement element, you know, where we're talking about procurement from black-owned businesses, you know, but how often am I buying from them? What am I buying from them? What kind of sustainability am I giving them? You know, how do I get 1 bonus point for supplier development? So basically the codes are saying, if I buy from you and then I make you a supplier and then I spend money to develop you further, I get my supplier development point and that 1 bonus point of graduating you. So what companies do is they would put you under ESD program. Let's say you're an ICT company, buy 2 USBs from you. I mean, how much is that? 250 bucks. Then they record you as a supplier. Because in a way, you are a supplier, right?
You sold it to
invoiced.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You know, then they put you there and then they put you through some few workshops, you know, that are not even relevant to your business. And then they're like, okay, we did enterprise development, we bought from them, and then we've now put them under supply development. We did 5 workshops for them. You get full 15 points plus your 2 bonus points, your 1 bonus point on your BE scorecard. You know what I'm saying? So the fundamentals that I'm talking about is why you're doing what you should be doing. It's that interpretation I'm talking about.
I hear you.
Are you coming up with the correct form of interpretation?
Because they were set up for a reason, which was to transform.
Yeah.
And sure, they have to go through certain iterations, but you got to a point where that you were frustrated at how much resistance and how much point buying, how much fronting was happening in order to jippo the system.
Yeah.
Sure, the system had flaws, and it was looked at again. But the forgotten fundamentals is to say, guys, it's if we're going to engage on this topic of BEE, let's not engage and fake on it. If you have a problem, then really say, no, I don't want to transform. And maybe that's a better road to go down. Because, I mean, a friend of mine, I'm very curious on your view on this as well. A friend of mine was saying that sometimes as Africans, we look to our oppressors to free us from them. And this element of BE being done by the 66% white male senior management is almost that view of how can you free us from you? And to your point as well, that, you know, when we talk about Africans, we're not just talking about black people. It doesn't mean that we hate we
anti-white.
Anti-white. And I think you explain it better, but it's an anti-white supremacy or anti-white privilege thing, anti-system that creates inequality or lack of opportunity for anyone who's born under certain circumstances on the continent. I mean, for example, your wife is mixed race, and my grandmother as well is mixed race, and because of not ending up on a certain side of the fence of that family, her opportunities were then limited. And that's what we talk about Africa. It's that system. And so when we talk about freeing Africans from their oppressors, which also includes things like aid. how do you think Africans should be freeing themselves?
So there's a perception that we need to change, right? And I'm gonna put it as a question. Okay. What is it that white people have that we can't access without them actually opening the door for us? The answer is nothing. Do you want money? Yes, you want money.
You need to put food on the table.
Let's go get it. Why is the assumption that, okay, the white person is sitting with the key? Buntu, you know what? You and I, we know we want money. We know it's there, but you know what? It's the white person who's got the key. No. Do you want money? You say to me, yes, Sibu, I want money. You know, we were speaking earlier about podcasts and turning it into a business and stuff like that and whatnot. Okay, let's do it and then let's go get the money. Do we need to discuss this with a white person? I don't think so. Do we need to get permission? Yes. Do we really need to get permission, or can you and I wake up on Monday and actually just go out there and make it happen? You see, and that's the thing we have. I'll give an example, and it goes back to this thought leadership thing that we were speaking about. Do I need a white person's permission to move up in my career? No. I went out there, I started writing articles, people started seeing my leadership trait, and they said, you know what, we want you to come work for us.
Powerful.
But I did not need to go to the council of white people and say, okay, guys, listen here,
how do I do this?
Please, please, can you please, like, how do I? No, you cannot. No. If we want this, do we want the township economy to change? Yes, we want the township economy to change. Do we want to create more problem solvers in Africa? Yes, we want to create problem solvers in Africa. The question now is, you and I tomorrow, what are we going to do? And do we really need to go sit down with a white person in order to make this thing happen? Not.
So take ownership of your own liberation. Take ownership of your own destiny.
Yeah.
Is what we're saying.
Yeah. And I know the counter argument to this. Sorry to cut you off. The counter argument to this is that they are sitting with the resources and the money that we're actually looking for,
with the information
and the information as well. You know, so I know that's going to be the counter argument.
So what do you say to that guy? It's like, but Sbu, I hear you, man. I've been trying so hard. I put in the jobs, but I apply. You know, and the bank is not giving me an extra loan. But what can I do now? And you know I didn't go to school.
Yeah.
And you know I don't have money.
That's the counter argument. That's the counter argument. So there's something that some of us we need to fix. The stokvel market in South Africa is worth billions. Funding for SMMEs, black SMMEs, can be funded by black people through these stokvels. We have banks.
We've got billions.
We've got banks that have billions. We've got banks that have billions. You must remember, that's why the white market is now trying to get into the stokvels. You know?
Because there is a large market.
Because there's a large. The banking sector is already making a lot of money.
But you're saying this because you're black middle class. Well,
that's the thing. I know these things.
You know the stats.
I know these things. And that's why the moment you take black middle class, and then you say, as much as it's unfair, you have the responsibility of pushing that information home. People will understand that we have all the resources that we actually need to do what we need to do without going to get permission from the oppressor. It's there. That's why it's up to us to actually, these kinds of podcasts that we're doing, this is fantastic. This is amazing. You know, we need to put it out there. Every black, I mean, if you think about how many people have left the township, I'll make Mamelodi an example. Imagine if we all came back and started informing people. Ooh, I know there's a lot of us.
We did master classes in Mamelodi Town Hall about economic emancipation.
Yeah.
And we bring Sbu from Siaka, we bring from Standard Bank, and just come share your perspective on supply. Come share your perspective. You're from moms. You're not speaking to strangers. No. You're speaking to people you grew up with.
Yeah. And also the format that we use. The format that we use. You know, let's not try relatable. Let's be relatable. You know, like I said earlier to you, you know, and try and go to and talk.
And talk
and really
relatable
talk. And not be too technical and try to sound intelligent. Let's just talk direct. And you will see those things will change and people will understand that, you know what, we actually don't need a key. There's this image that I like of a horse tied onto a chair, and actually the horse does not move away, because the impression is that as long as I'm tied to something, that something I'm tied to is actually heavy. But it's a chair. If this horse moved, actually it was going to drag.
It was just going to drag that.
It was going to drag that chair, but it doesn't think so. It's like it's an assumption, you know.
Because it was taught from a very young age, when it was little.
Yeah, that if I tie you up,
if you and then you can't move. Now it grows up to think.
Doesn't even try. It doesn't even try. That's what happened with us. Now we're sitting and we're like, okay, we know where the key is.
Wow.
We have to change all of that, and now people will see that I'm actually standing in the queue to get the key, but the door is already open. It doesn't make sense. Like middle class, it's our responsibility. We need to show people that I've done it. I've done it myself. I went to places where I actually got in, and I was like, I can't believe how free this is. This is as free to the white person as it is free to me. It's for the taking for me too, like it's for the taking for him.
Providing value.
That's it. That's what we need to do.
And even as SMEs, even as people in research, in work,
yeah,
I'm an advocate to say, you know, what can we drive towards in our realm, the African dream?
Yeah.
And what is the African dream for you? I think that's a lot about the question that we're asking, because I believe that when people know what they want, their purpose, they will find a way. Our curious, determining spirit will find a way, but we are chained to the chair and don't move because we were taught that we can't move as long as we are as we are driven. And I want to close with asking your African dreams. And I'm hoping that you know there's someone out there who's listening and they are in a space where they're thinking, why should I'm struggling with my business, or I've been applying for jobs and I'm not getting the jobs, or I've been now sleeping at the library for 2 weeks because I can't afford accommodation for university, but I'm the first one in my family to go to university, and I don't know why I should continue this. Like, is this still worth it?
Yeah.
But like they're trying to figure out their African dream, and maybe they can reflect from your African dream if you are thinking of the future of the continent and what the African child should be aspiring for.
Sure.
How do you view that?
Yeah, I think the African story pains me a lot. You know, every time I think about it, it really pains me. Like I said, we've got problem solvers, we've got big leadership problems as well. You know, I wish we can fix leadership across board when it comes to Africa. But my African dream is where Africa can start solving its own problems, its own way, with its own rules.
Not asking for
what if our schooling system is actually not even supposed to be grade 1 to matric?
Why did we do only start working at 18? Does that make sense here?
What if that's not the system? What if the way we structured tax in South Africa?
Text writing?
No, tax isn't like, you know...
tax, like the way we charge for government.
The way we charge for government, you know.
Income.
What if that's not the way?
Why do we have VAT, guys? I mean,
why?
It makes sense, but why is it...
Is it because of somebody else is doing it? You know, what if a girl child is not supposed to be taught the fundamentals that they have been taught? What if that's not the South African system? What are our problems? What do we need to solve them? Our way. I think we'll be shocked. We might have to re-engineer everything. Everything.
Wow.
We might have to change the way we talk. We might have to change the way we express ourselves. And I'm not speaking language, you know, but how we motivate ourselves. We may need to change how we parent. We may change how we interact in society. We might need to change
Parliament, why we vote the way we do.
Everything.
Why healthcare is the way it is. If we start asking the questions of How do we solve African problems?
Our way?
African solutions.
Yes. Our rules.
Our rules within the context, with which I'm hearing is truly tapping into the nature of being a human being and asking true questions to be impactful.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing from you in resonance, is in your space, what are you doing to impact the African child?
Yeah.
And back to the African child, you as an African child, the African child out there, what would you say, you know, if you look back 10, 15 years, what would you say to them about their journey? And what advice would you want to give to them?
Sure. Question things. Question things. Don't just accept
the status quo.
Question things. Question why. Every step you take, find out that step, who is it impacting, how is it impacting them? Is it impacting you? Is it for benefit, or is it making things worse? Those are very important questions. Ask that, because let me tell you something. If you can find that the steps you're taking are positively influencing 5 people, the next question is, how do I multiply it? And if it's affecting people negatively, then you start thinking, I'm part of the problem. Question each and everything.
You're connected.
Don't float. Don't float. Question each and everything. And you know what? If it means you must do things differently, then do them differently.
And if it means you must do things that are difficult,
then you have to do things that are difficult.
Things that will make you unpopular.
That's it. That's it. You know, so question everything. Black child, question everything. Question everything. Unfortunately, you're going to have to comply with the system.
In some areas.
Some areas, because otherwise, I mean, you're going to be...
It's going to break you.
It's going to break you. You're going to be put outside. But in your little corner, question. Question.
Question and act.
Yeah.
Do. Sir, thank you so much for the insight, for the impact, and for the inspiration. Please, guys, if I can invite the guys to reach out for the book on or through your social media, and we'll plug in here. For Facebook
I'm doing the second edition of the book. I'll let you know when it comes out, because the book I written initially, the codes changed afterwards. So I want to bring in those changes to the codes as well. So I'll let you guys know as soon as the second edition is out.
Amazing, amazing. So forgotten, are they still forgotten, the fundamentals?
They're still forgotten. Nothing has changed. They've become worse.
They are even more forgotten. Amnesia going. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the amnesia of the BEE codes very soon with Mr. Sibusiso Nkosi. Thank you so much for inspiring the African child. Please link up with us. Tell us what you thought about transformation, about how the future of the African continent is connected to transformation and what it means for you. What's transformation for you? Drop it in the comment, find us on our social media, subscribe to the channel, and keep dreaming. Thank you very much.